Welcome. That was If I Were a Bell. So I've got a bunch of new backing tracks now that I'm just getting used to, and I'm still not used to the old ones, but now there are more. So I'll be going through some new material, and we'll just let the chips fall where they may. And in between, I'm going to just kind of stick to the program here. You know, I'll put it in the description and the title and everything. Basically, I'm not trying to bait and switch you guys. I'm really going to talk about how to make it as a musician. How to make it. So that's it's kind of a big topic, and I'm clearly not going to be able to exhaustively, give you everything on how to make it. So you'll be getting basically one person's view on how to make it. And maybe it'll be helpful, maybe not. But in any case, we'll have lots of nice music too. So, how about let's see here. Do something that's a little bit off the beaten path, something that we don't hear very often. Okay, so this one, let me just make sure it's the right one here. It's at the right volume level. This is called Don't Explain, and it's a song that's very much associated with Billie Holiday. I don't think that it was written by Billie, so I'm going to just look that up for you guys here. Oh, okay, so it maybe was written by Billie. Also Arthur Herzog Jr. So that's all I can tell you about it right now. Billie Holiday, Arthur Herzog Jr. Don't Explain. Good song.
One, two, three, four.
Thank you. Don't explain. Billie Holiday, Arthur Herzog. So, making it. First of all, what does that actually mean to make it? I think if you can answer that question, then you're already ahead of the game. What does it mean to make it? It can mean a lot of things to different people. So I can only tell you what it means to me. What it means is where you've reached a point where your life, here on earth is is flowing in a way that feels good to you. You feel like your work is meaningful, and you feel as though you have an enjoyable life. You feel a sense of abundance. You feel a sense of belonging. And you feel as though what you're doing is essentially what you're supposed to be doing. So that right there, that's making it. So having money is an aspect of that. Certainly, I'm not going to ignore. So if you go in and you start looking at your definition for making it, try to ascertain whether that definition is actually serving you or is it hindering you. Because if your definition for making it actually requires a certain amount of comparison between you and others, essentially meaning that if I make it, that means that I've gotten ahead of all these other people, or maybe I've reached the point that I subjectively set for some great musician who I have a lot of respect for, and I don't feel like I've made it until I've somehow equaled what I consider to be their greatest feats. And so it's this comparison, this kind of constantly focusing on others that creates an illusion that success is somehow based on winning a number of points in the universe, And the thing is, the universe doesn't actually have a scorecard. We as human beings enjoy scorecards, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't have them. I enjoy competition. All I'm saying is that success is not. It's not really that. Success is something other than that. It's, to me, it's more like how I described it. So, I believe that's the first step, is really recognizing how are you defining making it? And if you're still defining it based on that thing that says, well, I need to make X amount of dollars, or I need to have so many followers, or I need to be able to do a certain number of concerts, or I have to release an album every year, or I got to do something quantifiable that says that I've, exceeded the average, or that I've, that I'm better than all these other people, or whatever. Even if it means I'm a better teacher or something. I would like to suggest that sort of thinking, although it's not bad thinking, it's thinking that will ultimately lead you nowhere, because it feeds on itself, and you end up with this kind of insatiable need to top your last achievement. You're always like looking to say, well, that's great. I've achieved this, and I've made this much money, and now I got to top that. Especially if you start competing with others. You say, well, so and so, he plays way more gigs than I do. So and so plays an instrument and he can play higher than me. So and so can play faster than me. So I haven't made it yet. I got to get to where so and so is. None of that stuff is actually going to have a negative effect on your development, but it may have a negative effect on your psyche in the long run, because it's not going to lead you anywhere. All you're going to be doing is practicing that feeling of feeling like I'm incomplete all the time. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And you're constantly living in the future. So there we go. That's a summation of all of this that I've been talking about. You got to live in the now. And that means you got to be where you are. And you have to, as a musician, that means playing 100% as you are now. So I'm going to call that chapter 1. Now let's go on and make some more music. So there's a lot of blues in this new package here. Don't play the blues that often here. So here we go. Billie's Bounce.
One, two, a 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so that was Billy's Bounce by Charlie Parker, I think. Yeah, Charlie Parker. So, the next thing about how to make it as a musician. Uh, I don't hear a lot of talk about this. I think it's unfortunate. But how honest are you, really and truly? How honest are you about what you do? Are you making music because it's in you already and it just, you want it to come out? How honest are you about, these kind of deep questions of like, why are you playing music? Uh, why are you choosing this life? How honest are you about the question, is my music truly what I'm feeling? Maybe it isn't. Maybe you're still copying and you haven't yet discovered your voice. That's not a bad thing. Again, that's a stage that a lot of people go through. And when you ask yourself that question, pay attention to what the answer is, and this is great because you don't have to really account for your answer. Nobody's going to say, well, that's the wrong answer. This is just a question you ask yourself, and then you have to pay attention to the answer. So maybe right now it says, well, I haven't really gotten there yet. I haven't discovered my inner voice yet. But do you want that? Is that what you want out of music? There's some people, maybe if they really had to look at an honest answer to the question of why am I doing this? Why am I in music? They might only come up with, well, I want to be famous, or I want to be a star, or perhaps they've chosen some less popular aspect of music, like jazz is not very popular, so it's not likely you're going to go into it thinking you're going to become a star. There are other kind of music where that would definitely be a temptation. Well, maybe you're going into music because your parents were musicians, and so you feel like you need to gain their approval. That's another reason. And all these things are certainly, valid. But I want to propose that that it's important for your success to really be committed to it as a life, and that means that you are actually also you're willing to put yourself out there. And I really mean it. It's like your musical presence, not a copy of some great player that you're emulating, but your musical presence, whatever that is. Even if you're a classical musician, you never improvise. It's still your, what comes out of you is what you play. And if you feel like, well, this is what I do, it may just be notes on the page, but I'm putting my heart into it. And you can hear that with great classical players too. It's not a question that they've practiced more. It's more a question that they've really learned who they are musically. And it comes out when you hear them. But part of it is they've asked that question and they've answered it. And the answer that they've come up has said to them, yes, I am, I'm willing to have this life be an exploration of what what and who I am musically. That I'm willing to have this life be that, and see what happens. And see what happens, just try it. A lot of people are probably just too afraid to do that. They say, well, I might not be successful if I just be me. I may have to continue to put on a mask. Perhaps it's a mask of showing everyone how loud and powerful I am, or this is a mask of covering up something where I don't feel like I can play myself. I got to try to copy licks of some famous player all the time, or I don't feel like I can be myself, so I don't have any confidence that I can be an improviser, and therefore I'm going to play whatever gigs come up, even though that's not really what I want, And so these little compromises that come in because someone decided that they were too afraid to actually trust that they were here to be a musician, that they really belong here as a musician. And I'm going to propose that it's still up to you to make that choice, whether you belong here. It's not up to anyone else. It takes a certain fearlessness to actually do that, though. So, yeah, that's going to be chapter 2. All right. Here's a song I've played different versions of. This is an old standard called I Thought About You. Okay.
One, two, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, that was I Thought About You, a little different than the version I usually or had formerly been playing. So that's Van Heusen. While I choose my next song, I'll talk a little bit about trust. So, kind of alluded to this before. Trust. Trusting the process and trusting yourself and trusting that you really do have something to offer musically. That's important. Because it may feel uncomfortable. And in a microcosm, it's sort of what we do as improvisers. You can take the easy road, you can take the hard road, and maybe the easy road in this case is one where you play everything so conservatively that you're not really stretching out in your improvisation. You're kind of regurgitating stuff that you have prepared. And there isn't anything actually wrong with doing that. That's a time-honored tradition, especially in big band music, where often the soloists would play virtually the same solo every rendition of a certain song. It's not a problem. If you put your heart into it, it doesn't really matter that you're playing different notes or the same notes. But is it honest? Is it truly what you feel that pull towards? You feel this magnetic pull towards creation. You feel this magnetic pull towards the creation of music, and it may be that you may honestly and truly hear certain sounds, phrases, notes, things like that, and they come out a certain way every time you play that song. But if it is truly that, then that's the road you take. But maybe there is a bit of a disconnect that says, well, I'm not really certain that I can play this thing that I actually want to play, that I'm actually hearing. And so you play it safe instead. I'm going to propose that it may be painful at first, but that is a dangerous thing. And so I'm going to propose that you take a chance, that you really just, sit down, maybe look at yourself in a mirror and say, I'm in music for a reason, and I do hear it, I do feel it. And maybe it's time for me to actually have enough faith in me, which is faith in yourself, that I'm going to spend some time just doing exactly what I currently feel musically, and see what happens. See if that changes you. Because I'm going to also, speculate that many of your heroes that you love listening to, they spend a great deal of their musical time in that state where they're out there and they're taking chances. You know, they're not necessarily playing it safe all the time. You know, this isn't it's something where it's all or nothing. You know, most musicians have comfort zones, and they'll occasionally go deep into their comfort zone, and then sometimes they'll go really far away from it. You know, I don't believe that there's such a thing as a 100% pure improviser all the time that's never going to repeat themselves, and they're never going to go back into their comfort zone. That's not the point of this topic. The point is for you to find that, for you to identify whether or not you're spending all this time in your comfort zone because you're too afraid that maybe what you have to say this isn't going to be any good, or maybe that you're going to fall flat and crack a note or miss something or end up in the wrong position or whatever. Well, imagine if you never tried. Just imagine that. If you never, ever tried, you wouldn't expand at all. I mean, you'd be so harnessed by all of these comfortable situations that you keep putting yourself in, that you'd never be able to actually discover who you are. And I'm going to just say that when you actually start having faith that your own creation and that your own musical heart and soul have a reason for being here, and that it's worth you trying to let that out, I think you'll discover, if you stick with it, I'm not saying you try it once and then maybe it gets uncomfortable and you never do it again. I'm saying if you stick with it, this has to be a new habit. If you try that, I believe that it will contribute to your success. It will not create the thing that you fear, which is that you're not going to be good enough and you no longer have your comfort zone of falling back on your, licks, and you're copying others and whatever things that you use to impress your peer group. And maybe once you actually start having faith in truly being you as a musician, improviser or not, that your voice will come and that it will have a place in this world. Because faith is something that grows on itself. You may start off and you have just this much. And that may be represented by you're in your practice room and you suddenly went in a direction you've never gone before and it worked, right? Maybe it was just, one little section, a couple of seconds out of, 5 minutes. So that's the seed that starts, and you got to water that. Well, that's how any creative endeavor is going to start. It's going to start with somebody who believes enough in themselves and enough in what they're doing that they're going to take a chance and say, well, maybe the world actually is going to want this. So as it grows and as you develop in that faith in yourself, the product will grow as well. And people notice that stuff, even if they're not musically inclined. They just sense it. People have something that goes beyond the 5 senses that can just, that kind of thing becomes very magnetic. So that's my little chapter on believing in yourself. Okay, here we go with I'll Never Smile Again.
One, 2, 3, 4, 1.
I'll Never Smile Again. Let me look that one up. That's associated with Tommy Dorsey, of course. And the composer's name is Ruth Lowe, Lowe. Written, I don't know if it was written for Tommy Dorsey, but Tommy Dorsey did the most famous version. I'll Never Smile Again. So, my tape's going to run out. I got time for just a little bit more pontificating and then one last song. So, I'm going to put things together. And so we've talked a little bit about faith in yourself. We've talked about honesty. We've talked about knowing exactly what you mean when you say success. The last thing is, the last thing I have time for. I mean, you talk about this forever. The last thing for today is, you know how when you do like one of these adventure video games, or even like the old text adventures, or like a movie, like a fantasy movie or something like that, where it's an epic. And have you ever noticed that at the right time, someone always finds something, or there's always some little key that was hidden somewhere, or you end up just somehow you meet the right person, and they happen to know someone who knows someone who opens up a door for you, and then you get to the next level, right? It's just, life doesn't just end up stuck. You always have there's always some clue. There's always something, even if you feel like you're stuck, there's always some little thing that if you just pay attention, it'll open the door for going to the next level. And that's kind of what real life is all about. These games, they may be fantasy, but the structure of them, the underlying structure is based on reality. And that's how life is. So the trick is you have to pay attention. You have to be ready to see those signs, to see those little tidbits and those little gifts that have been placed in front of you. Often they're quite obvious, but if you're just too busy, being in your head all the time, you may not notice it. It's a matter of actually paying attention, and this is probably the part that most people don't get, you have to decide to take it. You can't just be like, well, I shouldn't do that, or that's not what I planned for today. Because then, if life is showing you all these ways to go, and it says follow this sign towards greater expansion, and then you're like, no, sorry, but I don't have time for that, then life's gonna basically answer, okay, if you don't have time, then by all means stay stuck. That's kind of how it works. But I believe that everyone has those little signs and opportunities. You do. You got to put yourself into the frame of mind where not only you're going to notice it, that requires awareness, but you also have to be receptive. That means saying, okay, life, show me. Show me the breadcrumbs. Show me the sign. Show me the little keys, the little gifts, and I will take them. I will pick them up. It may feel uncomfortable, so you got to get over that. But that's the last part for today about how to make it as a musician. So I didn't give you any stuff about creating a blog or getting followers or getting a record contract or getting a haircut or any of those other things. And we didn't talk about trying to be a nice guy and networking and all that other stuff that they teach you in school. So you can get all that stuff. What I'm talking about is something a little different than that. So if you're totally confused by this, I apologize. But hopefully in some of you, I have actually awakened something that was already there. All right, so here we go with I did a fast tune the other day. Yeah. Oh, you know what it was? It was bebop. This is a song that I probably should practice a bunch of times before actually playing it in front of you, but what the heck? Bebop.
One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
So, yeah, we all have something to build on. For me, it was that. This is a Dizzy Gillespie tune called Bebop. It's not slow. So, I thank you for keeping me company, and we'll have plenty more of these on the way. Also, I have lots of plans for additional how-to stuff and play-alongs and things like that on the Vimeo site, and so stay tuned. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.